We all know that there are many instances where superheroes from vastly different worlds come together and fight the same cause. But there are also many times where these unions are broken by disagreements or betrayals. In this list, we'll be taking a look at the times that other superheroes betrayed Batman himself. Let's get into it. At number 10, we have Baphomet. Although he was actually just onomatopoeia in disguise, it was still a moment of betrayal that took Batman by surprise. Baphomet appeared to be a young, up-and-coming vigilante superhero who appeared numerous times to help Batman, one time helping him defeat the Black Spider. He showed face so many times, in fact, that Batman started to trust him and eventually gave him his blessing to start fighting crime in Gotham. Batman even had Baphomet fill in for him while he was on vacation in Aspen with his fiancée. And Onomatopoeia as Baphomet was really playing the long game. He even caught Mr. Freeze and single-handedly stopped the Joker. So Batman really started to confide in him, even bringing him to the Batcave one day after a real heart-to-heart moment. In this instance, Batman even goes as far as taking off his own mask in front of Baphomet, who promptly reveals his true identity as Onomatopoeia and slits Silver St. Cloud's throat, who is Batman's fiancée. Of course, at this point, Batman knows that he messed up big time, but how could he have known? This dude played the long game, with a sad outcome for Batman, of course. At number 9, we have Zatanna. This is another pretty sad one, but then again, that's sort of the theme of this whole list, right? Zatanna, a powerful superhero who has control over magic, is a longtime love interest for Batman. And in one storyline known as the Mind Wipe storyline, Zatanna is caught wiping Dr. Light's memory, and also trying to change his personality to be less evil. But when Batman walks in on this happening, she also wipes part of his mind as well. Of course, Batman doesn't realize this since his memory had just been wiped, but the Justice League has to come together and confess to Batman what had happened. This crushes Bruce, causing him to naturally develop some pretty serious trust issues and create Brother Eye, an intelligent system that orbits Earth to keep an eye on superheroes that may betray him in the future, which leads to more sad discoveries down the road for the Dark Knight. Okay, at number 8, we have Catwoman. I know, she definitely isn't considered a villain to Batman either. In most cases, as we all know, Batman is usually romantically associated with Catwoman. And going into the Nolanverse, there's an instance in The Dark Knight Rises when Batman's trust for Catwoman is strong enough that she actually leads him into a trap set by Bane, in one of the closest calls we see Batman ever face, comics or movies, to facing death. This just proves that Catwoman really can't be trusted no matter how influential or appealing she is to Batman. She will always put herself first, and that's something we can basically confirm after seeing this. Luckily, at the end of this event, when Catwoman sees how hard Bane beats up Batman, she gains sympathy, leading to a change of heart. But it was sort of too late at that point. At number 7, we've got Alfred. Not a superhero in the state we all know him as, but why he belongs on this list is that in one storyline, he's actually given superpowers. And if his intentions had remained heroic, Alfred would have been a superhero by nature. But on Earth 1, while Batman is away, Alfred decides to track down a criminal organization that Batman had been monitoring. But he's captured, and when Batman and Robin come to save him, he sacrifices himself by walking into a trap set by the bad guys before they could. On the brink of death, Alfred is revived by a physicist named Brandon Crawford, who uses a radiation treatment to revive him. Unfortunately, this instead turns him into the Outsider, giving him superpowers and leading him into an angry rage towards Batman. Thanks a lot, Brandon. You had one job. Anyway, when the Outsider targets Batman's allies, Man-Bat, Batgirl, and Robin, they get the best of him, tearing the evil Outsider out of Alfred's body and leaving him vulnerable. And Alfred, in all his heroic glory, lays the last blow, taking out the Outsider for good. It's nice to have you back, Alfred, but maybe just stay put in the Batcave from now on. Number 6, we have Stephanie Brown. When Stephanie is Batman's Robin, she betrays him as well. Sort of. It was an accident, but a betrayal nonetheless. When Batman seemingly dismisses her abilities to be an adequate Robin, she sort of pushes him to train her, which he finally does. But when she disobeys him twice in combat, Batman is forced to retire her because he feels he just can't trust her. Feeling isolated, she goes off on her own to try and prove her worth. She gets a hold of one of his long-term plans to deal with the criminal underworld of Gotham. But due to her missing one key detail which the plan was predicated on, it all spins out of control and causes a citywide gang war, resulting in the Batman War Games storyline. She is then captured by Black Mask and tortured for information about Batman. She escapes, but later succumbs to her injuries in the hospital with Batman by her bedside. A very sad end to a potential superhero who just wanted to be accepted, but instead betrayed the very man she was trying to impress. At number 5, there's Jason Todd. Jason, who used to work alongside Batman as Robin, turns on him and teams up with the Riddler and Hush, another character who betrays Batman. We'll talk about that later. What happens is that Batman thinks Jason was killed by the Joker, and after a while of accepting this as fact, Batman is completely caught off guard by the return of his old partner, but this time with ill intentions for Bruce Wayne. So it turns out he actually is killed by the Joker, but after Superman Prime alters reality, Jason is revived. Sort of. He falls into a coma for a year and is taken by Talia al Ghul to a Lazarus pit to restore his powers. But when he reemerges, he isn't himself and is influenced by Talia to confront Batman, wondering how the Joker hadn't been killed to avenge his death. When Batman doesn't show remorse that he spared the Joker's life, Jason is enraged and takes on the mantle of Red Hood. He then does some nasty stuff like leading multiple criminal gangs in Gotham, sharing Batman's identity with Hush and the Riddler, and other villainous things which would be detrimental to Batman's ability to keep the streets of Gotham adequately protected. At number 4, we have Azrael, or John Paul Valley, in the Batman Nightfall story arc. A staunch supporter of Bruce Wayne, John Paul Valley is placed in charge of the Batman alias as Bruce Wayne is facing burnout due to run-ins with Bane. But while Azrael is wearing the mask and cape, he actually starts to inflict too much violence on the criminals of Gotham, going against the reputation that Bruce had taken so long to develop. Azrael even goes as far as distancing himself from Robin, believing that Robin isn't enforcing enough violence on the criminals of Gotham, seeing this as the only way to restore peace. Commissioner Gordon's trust towards Batman also takes a hit from John Paul's instability, because of course, no one is informed that this new Batman isn't in fact Bruce Wayne. It's another devastating betrayal of Bruce Wayne's trust, because when Bruce needed him most, a close confidant not only betrays his wishes and his reputation, but also gets carried away with his influence over Gotham, at one point leaving a captured civilian to die, along with serial killer Abattoir, who had been the captor. Just a flat out betrayal all across the board. Okay, at number 3 we have Thomas Elliot, otherwise known as Hush. Thomas was a childhood friend of Bruce Wayne who had the ability to become a superhero, but instead went supervillain, taking a stance against Batman in everything he does. What happens is that Thomas Elliot turns bad and decides to try and kill his parents for their fortunes. But Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father, actually keeps his mother alive due to his advanced surgical skills, which angers Thomas, who turns on Bruce in a bitter turn to resentment. He starts referring to himself as Hush, a masked villain covered in bandages, set out to defeat Batman. And he gets pretty close too, teaming up with the Riddler, the Joker, Poison Ivy, and Killer Croc in an elaborate plan to take down Bruce Wayne altogether. So yes, I know what you're thinking. He's not really a superhero, but deserves a spot high on this list because he could have been. This guy had dealt with a tougher upbringing than Bruce, his dad being an abusive alcoholic and his mother never protecting him adequately, so he had a harder time following the path of good that Bruce had led. But when they would play together as kids, Thomas would often outmaneuver Bruce, proving that had he pushed through his trauma and gone down a path of good like Bruce, he could have been a superhero that might have even contended with Batman's abilities. And I just had to put him on the list of times Batman was betrayed, because what hurts more than a longtime friend betraying you, you know what I mean? Actually, I hope you don't know what I mean. Let's keep it at that. At number 2, we take a look at the Injustice storyline when Superman betrays his otherwise longtime friend Bruce Wayne, along with some other superheroes as well. In a storyline explored both in the comics and in the video games, Superman is tricked into killing a pregnant Lois Lane under the influence of drugs that the Joker gives him. As a result, Superman goes against his core values and kills the Joker. This throws him into a spiral, as he also turns on other members of the Justice League who he once called teammates, including Batman. When Batman notices that Superman's reign of terror has turned into an authoritarian regime, he sets out to stop him. So what does the once heroic Superman do? He reveals Batman's true identity to the world and recruits Bruce's own son Damian to fight against him and the Justice League alongside him. Ouch. This brings us to number 1, Damian Wayne, Bruce Wayne's own son. This is a sad and a brutal betrayal, which is why it belongs at number 1 for me. Having been brought up by his mother Talia al Ghul and trained as an assassin from a young age, Damian is an aggressive and unagreeable young man who doesn't like to follow rules, especially those set by his father, who he feels is too easy on the criminals and isn't allowing him to thrive as the trained assassin that he is. Sound familiar? So when the opportunity arises, Damian Wayne joins up with Superman, who, as we've just previously explored, had just adopted all those values that Damian desired. So in a selfish and naive move to serve his own needs to kill, Damian Wayne, the former Robin, betrays his own father and helps to take on the entire Justice League as a force of evil. Just like many supervillains, his motivations are pretty deep-seated, and it's pretty obvious that he'd always wanted to serve alongside his father, but this just proves that just like Hush, a powerful being's upbringing can make a huge impact on the brutal path they choose. I'm sure if Bruce Wayne had known that he had a son in the first place, and it hadn't been sprung on him by Talia so late into Damian's adolescence, the boy could have been saved from these dark ways, which led to his betrayal. Brutal. So that's it. Did you like this list? Agree? Disagree? Did I miss anything? Don't worry about it. Leave it in the comments. I'm your host, Ben Ball. You can follow me on Instagram if you'd like, and as always, I'll see you next time. Stay nerdy.